Right, now do we go across the midfield and name the left side, or shall we concentrate across the line? What about one playing just inside? What have we got?
Well, I'm going for Bobby Charlton, who was a great player. People will criticise him for this, that, the other. The times I played with him, I must admit that every time we give him the ball, in certain areas, anything could possibly happen. I don't know which was his better foot. He could strike the ball with stunning power from any angle, scored fantastic goals. Great composure around the box to score goals. He scored side-footed goals. He scored strike goals with left to right foot. He could run at people and he'd go by people. The little Achilles heels that he had were far outshadowed by his brilliance at finishing and hitting the ball all around the pitch for fun. I thought he was a truly great player.
Fit?
I really did. Fit as anything, and an attitude and an enthusiasm for the game, even as when he was getting older. Five-a-sides, everything, hated to lose, but his love for the game of football was second to none. Truly great, and it was a pleasure to have played with him in two very good England sides.
Quite a record you've got, actually, isn't it? Thinking about the number of people you have played with, it's a wonderful collection of different styles, isn't it? Fabulous. Bobby Charlton then is one call. Frank?
Well, that was one of the first names I put down, Bobby Charlton, because when you first get asked to come on the programme, at first you think, what the hell can I think of in the
Well, we
last
didn't give you
30
much
years?
time, did we, in the 10 minutes between when we asked and you finally arrived?
Exactly. That taxi driver. But I agree with Alan. I think he was, I mean, I'm talking about people like Johnny Haynes and all guys like that from the past as well, who were wonderful players that Alan played with. Well, both of you played with Johnny Haynes, who I thought was a fantastic player. But I think Bobby's goal scoring record as well was unsurpassed as a midfield player. I know he started off as a left winger and he played sometimes centre forward, but I think his best position, most effective position, was in midfield, and he could do the lot. Great drop in the shoulder as well, terrific acceleration over 15 yards, marvellous shot with both feet, and again, like Bobby Moore, the bigger the game, the better Bobby Charlton seemed to play. And I think it's Gary Lineker, who is it, has just beaten Bobby Charlton's
They're equal.
record.
I think they're equal, 49, aren't they?
They're equal, and that is Gary Lineker, who's recognised as one of the top strikers in the last 20, 30 years. And Bobby Charlton's mostly been a midfield player, and actually shows you how many unbelievable goals he scored. Yeah, I would definitely say Bobby Charlton.
No other choice. He's got to be the man. A lovely story in one of the early England games when I played. Luckily enough, he was in the middle of the field, as Alan has just said. You know, it was a privilege to play with him. And I had the job, we were playing Holland at Wembley, and I had the job of marking Johan Cruyff. And I stepped in front of Johan Cruyff. They played a short ball. I got this ball off him. I dummied somebody else. I knocked the ball wide to Peter Thompson. He went down the line, crossed it, and Jeff Hurst scored. And we went in at half-time, and I sat down. I was quite pleased, because that wasn't my job, really, you know, to sort of do those sort of things. To sit in front of the back four and win tackles. And Alf Ramsey came up to me and he said, "What do you think you're doing?" And I said, "What, Alf?" He said, "When you stepped in front of Cruyff," he said, "Dummy that fella," he said, hit Peter Thompson with the ball, he crossed it with Jeff Hurst scored. I said, "What, do you think that was good?" He said, "Your job in this team is to win the ball and give it to Bobby Charlton." And I did that for 35 caps. And if you gave him the ball, it was just something just happened. He had this grace on the ball, didn't he? And he could drop his right shoulder, and when that left foot started to spray balls about, you know, it was just like dreamland. And if he got within 30 yards of goal, you know, you just said, "Well, hit it, Bob."
All right, he's in. Bobby Charlton. Who are we going to play alongside him?
A little point about Bobby. The only thing against him is the biggest moaner under the sun when you played against him. He never stopped complaining about tackles to the referee, but apart from that...
Some might see that as a major plus point as well.
Well, it is, because it shows you cared very much.
That's absolutely
well,
right,
you know?
yeah. OK, but Bobby Charlton's in. Who do we play alongside him? And is there going to be a ball player in there? Is there a Hoddle or a Hudson or a Curry or a Gascoigne that would get into this team?
Well, this is where I'm going to put my man Duncan Edwards.
Edwards?
Yes. I think the two of them were set for a fantastic career at Manchester United in the Busby Babes era, apart from the horrible crash which took a lot of fantastic footballers away from Manchester. And as a boy, again, my father used to take me, I used to marvel at this powerhouse, this strong, just a great build for a footballer, just being in charge of the middle of the park for Manchester United. and in the old days when the pitches used to be really heavy and you could hardly get the ball through the mud, this guy used to just power past people. You saw people bouncing off him, and he was like 18 years of age, you know. Undoubtedly we were robbed of one of the greatest players of all time, I think. And I think with Bobby in there, I've got to go for Big
Duncan Edwards. Frank?
Well, I've written some good names down here. You mentioned Glenn Hoddle, Johnny Haynes. I've got Alan down. I've got Brian Douglas used to play for Blackburn. He was a terrific little inside forward as well, you know. Colin Bell, Martin Peters, Trevor Brooken, Butch Wilkins had about 80 odd caps as well. I've got Alan down here as well. Bobby Robson. And Brian Robson was going to be my #1 choice until I found out that maybe you can pick players that you've never seen. He was a guy I always wanted to see when I first came down to Leicester as a 17-year-old. I was telling Alan earlier.
Who was? Sorry.
Duncan Edwards.
Right.
I've always heard about Duncan Edwards. I was desperate to see him because I was a football fanatic at that age especially. And the Man United bus was coming round the corner at Filbert Street. I was playing for the youth team, and I was just desperate to see Duncan Edwards coming off with the other stars as well. And the coach grabbed me and tossed me on the bus, and off we went to play at Saffron Lane. So I never actually seen him. But listening to Alan and listening to other people who are good judges in the game who had seen him, they reckon he was unbelievable. So although Brian Robson with his fantastic amount of caps and great leadership,
and his goals as well.
And his goals as well. I think Brian Robson's not everybody's cup of tea because he's not silky smooth like Glenn Hoddle and people like that, but very, very effective, I think.
Well, he liked to moan as well, so maybe you couldn't play him alongside Bobby Charlton. The two of them would be too much.
That's right. But yeah, I'll go along with Alan there. I think Duncan Edwards must be
Alan?
there.
Well, my first choice was Johnny Haynes. Because the impression when I left school at 15 and walked into Fulham, and there was the captain of England, you know, playing for Fulham in those days in the second division when I first arrived there. And the first job I had to go and sweep terraces. And they used to train at Fulham in those days. And out came Ainsley with the ball in his hand and on the pitch. And they did what they called in those days a 4-3-2-1. They did 4 laps, 3 laps, 2 laps, 1. And the ball came out. And they had a 5-a-side for the rest of the day. And at the end of the morning, as I was sweeping the terraces, I was watching them train. And Ainsley got 12 balls, and he came over to the far side, and he placed them on the halfway line, and he walked back, and he had about a 4-yard run, and there was a white cloth just outside the cottage, and it was his bath towel. And he chipped these balls from the halfway line onto the bath towel. And until he got 10 out of 12, he wouldn't go in. And I stood there leaning on this broom, a 15-year-old kid, watching the England captain do that. And I just saw him hit these balls time and time again that landed on the bath towel. And I thought, that's some footballer. So he would have been my first choice. But I bow to the superiority.
Well, look, can I just put a scenario to you where maybe you don't have to? You want Brian Robson in there. You'd like Johnny Haynes included. You've picked Roy McFarland as your centre-half, but really you wanted Edwards in there, didn't you? Is there a scenario here where maybe you could have another think about that, maybe open some options up to yourselves, or are you happy with what you've got so far?
I think when Alan said about Duncan Edwards, and I only saw him live at that game against Arsenal before you know, the disaster, but he was the complete footballer. John wasn't the complete footballer. He was a great, great footballer, Johnny Haynes. But to see Duncan Edwards the complete footballer, then you've got to put him in an England side somewhere.
Right, okay. So are we putting him in there, or do we need to think about this again?
No, I would put him in there.
He'll go in there. You're happy with what you've got?
And Bobby Charlton is
all right. Bobby Charlton and Duncan Edwards. We still need a left-sided midfield player, but we're going to have to take another break and do that when we come back, which is where we're going now. Back in a moment or so. Welcome back, and we're getting close as well to naming this all-time England 11. Let's check up before we go any further on what we've got so far. No debate about the goalkeeper. Gordon Banks it is. We've got a back four of Roger Byrne, Bobby Moore, Roy McFarland and Ray Wilson. A midfield so far of Sir Stanley Matthews, Bobby Charlton and Duncan Edwards. On behalf of today's entertainers, can I just ask, where are the modern-day footballers, gentlemen? Are we going to start to include one or two from more recent era?
For me, I'm going to put a couple forward, but isn't it funny that we're talking in the last 35 years or so, and most of the players we're talking about are the players from way back, because Alan, both Alans there, Alan had 50 odd caps, Alan had 82 caps, I think, something 72. Like that, 72. in modern day football, there's not many players that you can mention off the top of your head that said even over 50 or 60. But Bobby Moore and the Bobby Charltons and all these guys. And I think we were brought up in an era where football was absolutely number one to us. There was no distractions whatsoever. Most of us brought up working class upbringing. All you had was a little tennis ball or a ball slightly bigger. You played from morning to night at football. That's possibly why there were so many great players in those days.
OK, well, let's name the left midfield then. What are we going for? You wanted Tom Finney, didn't you?
Yeah.
Right at the outset. Alan, what have you got?
I've got Tom Finney down here.
No other choice. He was the best all-round footballer I think I've ever seen. He could play centre forward, he could play inside left, he could play outside left, he could play outside right. Skill. Oh, I mean, Alan was talking about Stan Matthews earlier on. You know, he'd drop his shoulder and go. Tom Finney could go both ways, and he could cross the ball with pace, and he didn't have to pick people out. You know, the ball just found the player, and he was such a wonderful footballer. The most modest footballer I think I've ever met in my life. I played against him in his last game when he was 40 years of age, when I was at Fulham. And as Frank said earlier on, when he just happened to mention Tom Finney, he was the best player on the park. He was absolutely brilliant. And I thought this man that was so modest and has never ever changed, and the quality of footballer that he is and was absolutely outstanding. The best winger, I think, you know, left side.
Because he could go, well, he could go right or left, couldn't he? He could go through the middle as well at different times if he wanted.
But again, an absolute natural. You know, if I may say so, the players of today and in team situation, team framework today, players are manufactured. This guy, just give him a football and he'll find a way of beating you. He'll find a way of creating something. Whether it's with right foot, left foot, just throw a ball to him and he, you know. With him playing for Preston, on a loyal man as well, played with the same club all his life. They used to come to Bolton. You can imagine big derby games they were in those days, full houses at Burnden Park. And they were terrified of this guy. Inside, outside, right foot, left foot. He used to take teams on his own. I had this wonderful picture of him when I was a kid of winning games on his own. Roy the Rovers stuff.
Yeah.
But he just had this fabulous ability, natural ability, that he could play football.
He's in then. It's funny, it's been a problem position, hasn't it, down the years, that left side?
Well, yeah, you have. I put, who was it, Peter Thompson down there, but left side, I mean, on the right-hand side, you had, what do you call it, Mike Shannon, who I thought was a smashing player that played in your time. I thought he was a terrific player. But left side, there's not too many you can think of, is there, that come to mind anyway.
But with Finney, you see, you could put him outside right and he'd use his right foot.
Yeah.
Put him outside left, he'd use his left foot.
Centre forward,
Put him at centre forward, he'd use both his feet.
Well, all the old professionals that I spoke to, and it might have been your dad and all these people included, would always say that, in their opinion, they liked him better than Stan Matthews. They thought Stan played a little bit for himself, but Tom Finney was a complete team man.
I'm just grateful to my grandfather for telling me about a lot of these players, I must say. So
We understand that you used to support Preston and you used to go and watch it.
no, that is a long way from the truth. OK, that's our midfield.